The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the bustling streets of New York City. Pedestrians rushed past, immersed in their own lives, unaware of the quiet victory blooming in Andrew Hart's chest. He stared up at the luxury apartment building, a wide grin on his face. They'd done it. After years of scrimping and saving, he and his wife, Vanessa, had finally secured their dream apartment in the heart of Manhattan. The listing had seemed out of reach, a modern 3-bedroom with stunning views of Central Park, but somehow they had gotten it at a significant discount. Vanessa's voice chimed through his phone as he picked up her call. "Did you see the paperwork? It's officially ours." Andrew laughed, the sound light and joyful. "I still can't believe it. How did we manage to get that kind of deal?" Vanessa hesitated for the briefest of moments. "Just luck, I guess." Andrew, ever trusting, brushed off the pause. "Well, whatever it was, it worked. I'm meeting the realtor later to sign the final forms." Vanessa's pulse quickened. She forced a cheerful tone. "That's great. I'll see you at home tonight. We should celebrate." Vanessa hung up, her heart racing. She sat in the dimly lit cafe, stirring her coffee absently as the realtor, Lucas Grant, slid into the seat across from her. "Well?" Lucas asked, flashing his practiced smile. His tailored suit and sleek watch made him look every bit the polished professional, but Vanessa knew the man beneath the surface. Vanessa glanced around nervously. "Andrew is signing the papers today." Lucas leaned back, his expression smug. "You should be proud. You've secured a luxury apartment at a price people would kill for." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Don't make it sound like it was easy." Lucas shrugged. "Nothing worth having comes free, Vanessa." His eyes darkened as he added, "You knew that." She looked down at her hands, shame coiling in her chest. It had started as a desperate attempt to secure a better life for their family. A few persuasive meetings, whispered promises, and, eventually, lines she had never thought she would cross. That evening, Andrew returned home with the signed documents in hand. He greeted Vanessa with a bottle of champagne and a triumphant smile. "To us," he toasted as they clinked glasses. Vanessa mirrored his smile, though her heart felt heavier than ever. She watched as Andrew gushed about their future, the furniture they would buy, the holidays they'd host, the life they would finally live. But every word reminded her of the price she had paid. The morning light streamed through the windows of their new apartment, casting golden rays across the hardwood floors. Andrew stood in the middle of the empty living room, arms stretched out as if embracing their new life. "Can you believe this?" he asked, his eyes glowing with excitement. Vanessa leaned against the doorway, clutching her coffee mug like a lifeline. "It's perfect," she murmured. Andrew walked over and kissed her cheek. "We deserve this." He looked out at the Central Park view, oblivious to the storm brewing behind her calm facade. Lucas Grant, the man who had made the impossible deal possible, was sitting in his sleek office downtown. His phone buzzed, and a familiar name flashed on the screen. "Vanessa." "I told you to stop calling," Lucas answered, though his voice held more amusement than irritation. "I didn't call to chat," Vanessa snapped. "You promised this would be simple." Lucas chuckled. "And it was. Your husband is thrilled, isn't he? None the wiser." Vanessa closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath. "This has to be the end. No more favors." "Of course," Lucas said smoothly. "But just remember, Vanessa, you're the one who came to me." She hung up before he could say anything else, her heart pounding. Every conversation with Lucas felt like quicksand. No matter how still she tried to be, she kept sinking deeper. That afternoon, Andrew invited his younger brother, Mark, and their best friends over to see the new apartment. The place buzzed with excitement as they admired the view and toasted to the couple's success. "You two really outdid yourselves," Mark said, clapping Andrew on the back. "How did you pull this off?" Andrew laughed and glanced at Vanessa. "Honestly, I have no idea." Vanessa handled most of the back and forth with the realtor. Vanessa's smile was tight. "Just a bit of luck and persistence." Mark raised his glass. "Well, whatever you did, it worked." As their friends chatted and toured the apartment, Vanessa excused herself and stepped out onto the balcony. The city stretched out before her, vibrant, endless, and suffocating. She felt a presence behind her and turned to see Andrew. "You okay?" he asked gently. Vanessa nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just needed some air." Andrew frowned but didn't press her. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders and pulled her close. "We did it," he whispered. Vanessa leaned into him, wishing she could believe in the dream he saw. But all she could see was the shadow of Lucas, lingering behind everything they'd built. Later that night, as Andrew slept soundly, Vanessa lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Memories of her meetings with Lucas haunted her. The late-night calls, the lingering looks, the moments she couldn't undo. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it quickly, afraid it would wake Andrew. It was a text from Lucas. "Enjoying your castle? Remember who built it." Vanessa deleted the message and placed the phone face down, her chest tight with dread. She had done what she thought was necessary to save their future, but now, the cracks in her choices were growing wider. The next morning, Andrew surprised Vanessa with breakfast in bed, pancakes, and freshly squeezed orange juice. "Look at you," Vanessa teased, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Andrew sat beside her, his face earnest. "We've worked so hard for this life, Vanessa. I want you to be happy." She looked down at her plate, guilt weighing heavily on her. "I am," she whispered, though the words felt hollow. Across the city, Lucas leaned back in his leather chair, swirling a glass of bourbon. He wasn't the type to dwell on past deals, but something about Vanessa intrigued him. She was desperate but determined, a combination he knew well. His phone buzzed with a new text. "Ready to talk?" Lucas's smile was cold as he typed back, "Whenever you are." As the days passed, Andrew busied himself with decorating and planning housewarming dinners, while Vanessa drifted further into her own isolation. The weight of the lie between them felt unbearable. One evening, as Andrew unboxed a new set of dinnerware, Vanessa stood by the kitchen door, watching him. "Andrew," she said quietly. He turned, smiling. "Yeah." Her lips trembled, but she forced herself to speak. "There's something I need to tell you." Andrew's smile faded as he set down the plate. "What is it?" Vanessa hesitated, feeling the enormity of the truth pressing against her chest. "It's about the apartment and Lucas." Andrew's expression shifted, confusion giving way to concern. "What about him?" Vanessa took a shaky breath. The truth was finally clawing its way out. Andrew's face grew pale as Vanessa's words hung in the air. "Lucas," a name that should have meant nothing, but the tremor in her voice made it something ominous. "Vanessa, what about Lucas?" Andrew asked again, this time more slowly, as if bracing himself. Vanessa's heart pounded in her chest. She took a step forward, wringing her hands. "The reason we got such a good deal on the apartment, it wasn't luck." Andrew's brow furrowed. "Then what was it?" Her throat tightened. "I made a deal with Lucas." Andrew blinked, confusion giving way to disbelief. "A deal? What kind of deal?" Vanessa felt tears sting her eyes. "He offered the discount if I spent time with him." Andrew stepped back as if her words physically struck him. "Spent time? Vanessa, what are you saying?" Tears streamed down her face now. "I thought I was doing it for us, for our future. I didn't know how else to save us from the debt." Andrew's face twisted with a mix of shock and rage. "So you," he stopped himself, running a hand through his hair as if trying to process what he just heard. "You sold yourself to get this place?" Vanessa's voice cracked. "It wasn't like that. I thought it was one mistake, one sacrifice to fix everything." Andrew let out a hollow laugh, his eyes filled with pain. "Fix everything? You've destroyed everything." The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in on them. Andrew turned away, pacing toward the window, staring out at the city skyline that now felt like a cruel reminder. "Why didn't you come to me?" he asked quietly. Vanessa wiped her eyes. "I didn't want to burden you. I thought I could handle it." Andrew spun around, his voice rising. "So you handled it by betraying me? You let him into our lives, into us?" Vanessa's knees gave out, and she sank onto the couch, sobbing. "I was scared. I thought I was protecting our dream." Andrew's fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to scream, to break something, but instead, he exhaled sharply, the weight of the betrayal dragging him down. Hours passed in tense silence. Andrew finally grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door. "Where are you going?" Vanessa's voice was hoarse. "Out," Andrew replied coldly. He paused, looking over his shoulder. "When I come back, I need space. Don't expect me to pretend this didn't happen." The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed through the apartment. Andrew wandered the city aimlessly, his thoughts swirling with images of Vanessa and Lucas, the lies that had built their life. He found himself sitting on a bench in Central Park, watching strangers walk by, their lives seemingly simple and untouched. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a text from his brother Mark. "How's the new place? Let me know when you're free to hang out." Andrew stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Not sure it's everything we thought it was." Mark's reply was instant. "What happened?" Andrew didn't answer. He couldn't. Not yet. Back at the apartment, Vanessa sat in the darkened living room. The shadows stretched long and unforgiving. Her phone lit up with an incoming call. "Lucas." She stared at the screen, her chest tightening. After a few seconds, she answered. "Why are you calling me?" she asked, her voice raw. Lucas's tone was calm, almost amused. "I'm guessing Andrew knows." Vanessa's silence was all the confirmation he needed. "I told you this would happen," Lucas said smoothly. "Secrets never stay buried." "Leave me alone," Vanessa whispered. Lucas chuckled. "You should have known better, Vanessa. Everything comes at a price." Vanessa ended the call and threw the phone across the room, watching as it hit the wall and clattered to the floor. Andrew returned late that night. He stepped into the apartment and found Vanessa sitting on the floor, clutching one of Harper's old drawings, a crayon sketch of the three of them, smiling in front of a house. Andrew's chest tightened, but he forced himself to stay cold. "I'm staying in the guest room." Vanessa looked up at him, her face pale and tear-streaked. "Is this the end?" Andrew's jaw clenched. "I don't know." He walked past her without another word, the door to the guest room closing softly behind him. Vanessa sat alone in the dim light, her sobs filling the emptiness. The next morning, the apartment was silent. The once cozy space now felt cavernous, echoing with the aftermath of the truth that had unraveled. Andrew emerged from the guest room, his hair tousled from a restless sleep. Vanessa was at the kitchen counter, clutching a mug of cold coffee, staring blankly at the window. They exchanged no greetings, just the hum of unspoken pain between them. Andrew cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "I'm going out for a while. Harper is staying at Mom's, right?" Vanessa nodded. "She's having a sleepover." "Good," Andrew said, grabbing his keys without meeting her eyes. Vanessa's voice wavered. "Are we ever going to talk about this?" Andrew paused, the weight of her words pressing on him. "I don't know if there's anything left to say." Andrew wandered the city streets, eventually finding himself at his brother Mark's apartment. Mark opened the door, his face immediately clouded with concern. "Andrew? What's going on?" Andrew hesitated before stepping inside. He sank into the couch, rubbing his temples. "I found out something about Vanessa," Andrew began, his voice heavy. Mark sat beside him, silent but attentive. She did something with Lucas, our realtor," Andrew choked out, anger and pain lacing his words. Mark's face darkened. "Lucas? The guy who sold you the apartment?" Andrew nodded, his hands clenched into fists. "She did it for the discount, to save us from debt." Mark exhaled sharply. "I don't even know what to say. That's a lot." Andrew's voice cracked. "I thought we were a team, but she made the decision alone. She betrayed me." Mark placed a hand on Andrew's shoulder. "Whatever you decide to do, I've got your back." Meanwhile, Vanessa spent the afternoon pacing the apartment, replaying every word of their argument. She knew the betrayal was unforgivable, but she clung to the small hope that there was still something left to salvage. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Lucas. "I can help you through this." Vanessa's blood ran cold. She deleted the message and blocked his number. Lucas's promises had been nothing but poison disguised as salvation. Andrew returned that evening, his expression unreadable. Vanessa braced herself. "I went to see Mark," Andrew said, dropping his jacket onto the couch. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't you. Vanessa flinched at the harshness of his tone. I get it. Andrew sat down across from her, his hands clasped together. I need you to be honest with me. No more lies. How long, how many times? Vanessa's breath hitched. It wasn't ongoing. It was a few meetings. I thought it would be over after that. Andrew's eyes darkened with pain. And you thought I'd never find out? Vanessa nodded helplessly. I didn't want you to. I thought I was protecting us. Andrew leaned forward, his voice quiet but cutting. You weren't protecting us. You were destroying us. The hours dragged as they sat in the dimly lit living room, the distance between them growing like a chasm. Finally, Andrew stood. I can't keep living like this, he said, his voice resigned. Vanessa's heart sank. What do you mean? I need time. Time to figure out if there's anything left worth saving. Vanessa reached for him, but he stepped back. Please, Andrew. I'm staying with Mark for a while, Andrew interrupted. I need space. Vanessa's hands fell to her sides, defeated. I love you. Andrew's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Love isn't enough when there's no trust. The door closed behind Andrew, leaving Vanessa alone in the dim, empty room. She collapsed onto the couch, her body racked with sobs. The next few weeks passed in a painful blur. Andrew stayed at Mark's, finding solace in the steady presence of his brother and long runs by the waterfront. Vanessa threw herself into work, but every quiet moment reminded her of the home that felt emptier without Andrew. Harper noticed the shift too, though Vanessa and Andrew both shielded her from the worst of it. On her weekend with Andrew, she looked up at him with wide eyes. Daddy, are you and Mommy mad at each other? Andrew knelt down, brushing her hair back. We're just working through some things, sweetheart. Are you gonna leave forever? Harper's voice trembled. Andrew's heart broke. No, baby. I'll always be here for you. One evening, Vanessa sat on their bed, staring at a photo of the three of them on vacation, a happy moment frozen in time. She whispered into the quiet, How did I lose everything? Her phone remained silent, no calls from Andrew. Across the city, Andrew sat by the window of Mark's apartment, staring at the skyline. His phone lit up with a message from Vanessa. I'm sorry for everything. I'll wait for you. He stared at the message, his heart torn between anger and the love that still lingered. The city skyline shimmered under the early morning light, but for Andrew, the view was a hollow backdrop to the storm inside him. He sat in Mark's apartment, nursing a cup of black coffee as the apartment bustled with weekend noise. Mark watched his brother carefully but knew better than to push. Are you going to respond to her message? Mark finally asked. Andrew's jaw clenched. I don't know. Mark sighed. You don't have to decide everything today. Just take it one step at a time. Andrew nodded, though the words offered little comfort. One step at a time? What if the path leads nowhere? Meanwhile, Vanessa sat at their dining table, Harper's art projects scattered around her. She tried to focus on the cheerful splashes of color, but her thoughts were consumed by the silence from Andrew. The weight of his absence pressed against her, suffocating and unforgiving. Her phone buzzed. It was Brianna, her closest friend. Vanessa hesitated before picking up. Vanessa, how are you holding up? Brianna's voice was gentle but firm. Vanessa exhaled slowly. Not great. I think it's over. You don't know that, Brianna said. You've owned your mistakes. Now you need to let him decide what he needs. Vanessa's voice cracked. What if what he needs is a life without me? Brianna didn't have an answer for that. A week later, Andrew finally returned to the apartment, but he wasn't alone. Harper held his hand, her face bright as she ran inside. Mommy! Harper called as she ran into Vanessa's arms. Vanessa clutched her daughter tightly, tears streaming down her face. Andrew stood by the door, his eyes tired but clear. We need to talk, he said. Vanessa nodded and set Harper down, sending her off to play in her room. Andrew sat across from Vanessa at the kitchen table. I've been thinking about everything. Vanessa's heart pounded. And? Andrew's expression softened, but there was still pain in his eyes. I believe you regret what happened. I believe you thought you were protecting us. But the trust between us is broken. Vanessa's lip trembled. Can we ever rebuild it? Andrew leaned back, his shoulders heavy with the burden of his answer. Maybe, but not right now. I need more time to figure out who I am without this betrayal hanging over us. Vanessa nodded, her tears falling freely. I understand. Andrew stood and reached for her hand. We'll always be connected because of Harper. We owe it to her to do this the right way. Vanessa clung to his hand for a moment before letting go. I'll wait as long as it takes. Andrew gave a sad smile. Sometimes waiting isn't the answer. Sometimes we have to let go. The months that followed were marked by bittersweet milestones. Andrew officially moved into a new apartment close to Harper's school. Co-parenting became their new reality. Exchange schedules, school events, and birthdays spent together but apart. Harper adjusted better than Vanessa expected. Her laughter returned, though there was always a lingering sadness when she asked if her parents would ever live together again. One sunny Saturday, Andrew and Vanessa stood side by side at Harper's soccer game. She scored the winning goal, and both parents cheered, their voices rising in unison. Harper ran toward them, beaming. Did you see that? Andrew lifted her into his arms, grinning. You were amazing. Vanessa laughed, brushing Harper's hair back. We're so proud of you. For a fleeting moment, they looked like a family again. But when their eyes met, the truth lingered between them. Some things, once broken, could never be the same. On the night their divorce was finalized, Vanessa sat on the couch alone, the silence of the apartment pressing in on her. She picked up a framed photo of the three of them at the beach, Harper holding their hands, her smile wide and unburdened. She whispered to the empty room, I'm sorry. Across the city, Andrew sat on his balcony, watching the stars. His phone buzzed with a message from Vanessa. I hope you find happiness, even if it's without me. He read it twice before typing back, I hope you do too. The message sent, and with it, a chapter of their lives closed. Years later, at Harper's high school graduation, Andrew and Vanessa stood together, clapping as their daughter received her diploma. Time had softened the edges of their pain, though the scars remained. Harper hugged them both tightly afterward. Thank you for being here. Both of you. Andrew kissed the top of her head. We wouldn't miss it for anything. Vanessa smiled through her tears. We're so proud of you. As they watched Harper celebrate with her friends, Andrew turned to Vanessa. We may have failed each other, but we didn't fail her. Vanessa nodded. No, we didn't. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the crowd, and for the first time in years, Vanessa felt a sliver of peace. They had built something meaningful out of the ruins. Not what they'd imagined, but something strong nonetheless. End of story.